Good evening. Oops, who's here? Oh, of course.
That one shouldn't have up, but, this one usually is.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the January 23rd, 2025 Conservation Commission meeting. This meeting is being held in person. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. First up, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first item on the agenda is to call the meeting to order and take attendance. Commissioner Rob? Here. Sarah?
Here.
Indra?
Here.
And Associate Commissioner Sadie is here. And our Conservation Administrator, Eileen, is here also.
So's Lucy. She's
Oh,
just
Lucy's
online.
here, yes, that's right. Lucy as well, our Associate Commissioner, Administrator. Okay, next item up, item number 2 is public comments. Is there anyone here or online for something that's not on the agenda? I don't see any other names on the TV, and there's one person here who I think is for our one item. So their record should show that there are no public comments. Item 3, approval of minutes. Do we have any minutes that need to be approved?
We do not yet, and I do have some slightly bad news, which is that our current minute taker, Tom, is considering stepping down because, well, he is stepping down, unless we can persuade him otherwise. He's just overburdened with his various other jobs.
Okay.
His full-time one as well. So we'll look into finding somebody else.
Okay.
He's been doing a great job. Thank you, Tom, if you're looking.
Yes, thank you. The minutes have been good when we get them. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 26A Francis Wyman Road, Town of Burlington, DPW, DEP number 122661. Good evening. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Gage Warren. I'm with the Town of Burlington's Engineering Division. I'm here on behalf of the DPW Engineering and Weston and Sampson, hopefully to close out the project.
Okay.
A little background about the project, as I'm sure you guys are aware because we've come before you before. We installed approximately 4,000 linear feet of 12-inch ductile iron force main between 26A Francis Wyman all the way up to Luther Road, right where kind of the bend of the road is. And then as part of this, we also revamped the pump station in place. Everything was done in the existing footprint just about. And as part of this, we also installed a grass swale with a perforated subdrain that goes to a little riprap apron at the southwest corner of the pump station lot. And as part of this, we abandoned the existing force main in place, drained it, capped it. So the limits of the work it was an extensive project, but we made it as minimal as we could.
Good. Okay. Eileen or Lucy, do you have any comments on this one?
Not really. This was, I'm only showing some of the plans because I just didn't want to open up all the plans for the whole long sewer. So as Gage explained, this came before you because some of the work was in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and within the riverfront area of a locally regulated stream. It was a necessary improvement for the town. There was, as I recall, there's a slight decrease in impervious, I'm pretty sure. I did make
I believe so, yes.
I wrote it here. So, well, what we said was there was no increase in impervious. It was basically the same. It was status quo. As he explained, they did pitch some of the runoff for the existing little actual pump station site to the swale. So that's a slight improvement in the riverfront area. They also cut some knotweed, which they disposed of properly. Erosion controls were in place throughout. I looked at it myself a few months ago. It was looking fine. I think there were still hay bales up then. I didn't go this past week or two because there was snow. If they're still up, we'll just take a look at them come spring just to see if they need to be taken down or whether they can just be scattered. But I have no issue with this project as it now stands.
Okay. Any comments from the commission? No, pretty straightforward. I had visited the site when it was first started. I'm glad to see the knotweed was addressed. You mentioned the existing force mains were capped and abandoned. Did they get? Do you fill them at all? You just leave them open? How were they dealt
I
with?
believe they just, they drain all the fluid and stuff out of it through Vector means, I believe, and then they just cap it in place.
Okay. So is there any risk of it collapsing in the future or anything? Or?
Probably not. I don't think that's a big concern now.
Okay.
How big are those original pipes? 12 inches?
Yeah, I believe it actually might even be a little bit smaller, and it's cement pipe.
So they're pretty small anyway, even if those
Yeah.
are.
Those are cast iron?
The,
Cement.
Cast iron?
I believe it's asbestos cement is the
asbestos
original
cement.
material. Yes.
Okay.
So that was also something that you considered a fairly substantial improvement because originally those pipes were going right under the wetland. So this way they abandoned them, as they said, and now all the new sewer pipes are going mostly down the roadway, right?
Yeah, pretty much entirely, I believe.
And even if they're in buffer zone, they're certainly out of the wetland.
Good. Okay. So if there is no other issues, boom. Nope, wrong thing. I have to get it up again so I have the right numbers to read.
Can I ask one question about the
Oh, please.
asbestos
Yes.
cement? Is there any concern, like in the far future, as that stuff gradually crumbles away underneath the wetland, that it could cause problems down the road, or is it viewed as pretty inert?
I don't think there's enough research out there right now saying there's any problems with asbestos pipe breaking down. Our rule of thumb is if we expose it, we dispose of it properly.
Yep.
But it's most of our water, our town potable water, is through AC pipes, so
Wonderful.
if it gets deemed a big enough issue. So technically, they say AC pipe is only problem if you breathe it in.
Right.
Right.
If we ingest it in our water, because there's trace amounts within our potable water, they say it's fine, but I'm sure 50 years from now, we'll be having a different discussion.
Probably.
Oh, thanks for that, Oakley.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, can I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance for 26A Francis Wyman Road, Town of Burlington DPW, DEP number 122661?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? 400. You are good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gage.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion on the elements of the mixed-use zoning proposal. And I'm going to lead the discussion on this. The town warrant has got warrant articles 2, 3, 4, and 5 that all pertain to this new zoning, the mixed-use district, which would be basically the mall, and across the street into that store. What's the store across the street? Kohl's, thank you. And mostly that's pretty much the area that's defined in this mixed-use district, a little bit into the district itself, that development called the district. And the idea is that it's currently, acres and acres of asphalt desert, as I call it, it's just paved. The total area of the project is 117 acres, and fully half of it is black asphalt, which serves no environmental benefits whatsoever. The purpose of this new zoning definition of this new district is to facilitate for the landowners to do development if they would like to build some other features on that property, and give them design guidelines and very specific controls over what they could build and how it should be designed. You have to keep in mind, this is not public property. You know, so we've heard people say, oh, let's put in a couple of softball fields in a park, you know, but it's not our property to do that. So it's up to the owners to initiate any development. And of course, they're only going to do it if it benefits their property value or their profit levels. So what the town has done is tried to update the zoning to allow for certain kinds of development that would be pre-designed in a sense. This zoning would have specific zoning limits. These detailed standards, if they followed, would facilitate building permits. If you say, I'm going to build it specifically to the way this is designed, and it's extremely complex, the way they've written this. I mean, this thing is, 50 pages of description. So it says, look, height, maximum setbacks, what you have for sidewalk requirements, what you have for street requirements, all of this features are defined. And if you follow them in your proposal to develop, approval should be easier. It still has to go through, whatever approvals are necessary, conservation or planning board and stuff like that, but it would be easier if you follow these guidelines. And it's very detailed, everything from new streets, various building types, green spaces. And just to give you an example of what some of it sounds like, and the reason we're getting involved, I suppose I should say, we don't have, as Conservation Commission, any authority to approve a zoning warrant article. But I did ask Bill Byer, our town moderator, if he would allow me to, when they go around and they say, how did the planning board vote, how did the zoning appeals board vote, if he would allow me to make a statement that we voted to support certain aspects of it. And he said yes. So we're interested in commenting on the environmental aspects of it. And just to give you a flavor of it, part of this development of this 117 acres would include a Vine Brook Greenway. And they have definitions as to what it should look like, and they have a map of where they think it should go, basically following the Vine Brook around the property. They have definitions of streetscaping. They're required along entire primary and secondary streets within this property, new ones that are created. They must have street belts with street trees, deciduous trees installed along the entire street frontage, minimum width of 8 feet street frontage for trees. Street trees should be spaced 40 feet on center, minimum size of planting of 3.5 inches caliber, which is a good sized tree, and they must be native species common to the region. So that's good. And then in between the street trees, there must be ground cover, low maintenance grasses, shrubs, bushes, flowers, and similar vegetated material, and it must be maintained. They talk about different types of open space that can be part of your application. Civic spaces, private open spaces, and the Vine Brook Greenway. But to give you some real examples of all the types of properties that they have potentially included in here, we mentioned the Greenway. It must be spatially defined by segment and include access to pedestrians, bicycles, and other designated modes of non-motorized transportation. And then they go into the types of buildings that might be there. Townhouse, residential buildings, outdoor amenity space lot coverage minimum 20%. So 20% of the lot must be green space. And same for multifamily design buildings, mixed-use design buildings, general commercial buildings, any of these things that a designer can, or building owner can decide to put on the property. Now there's like 7 different owners of the pieces of this area. And one owner might say, I want to put in a mixed-use building and a laboratory building and some residential and make a little development or whatever. And each of these defines the specifics of how the building should look, how it should be set, and they all must have 20% minimum green space, with the one exception being laboratory buildings, which they've defined 15% minimum. I was involved as an advisory member of this design committee, and I tried to get them to say 25%, of course, and I put out things like, the Cousteau Society thinks the world should be 30% green and stuff like that, but I got them to 20%. So those are all very specific design components. And then they talk about sustainable development applications. The buildings, the whole project should use locally sourced and natural materials, high-performance building skins, green roofs and walls are highly recommended. Pervious paving, natural paving materials should be used to create all sidewalks, plazas, terraces. Rain gardens and bioswales should be incorporated to create resilience for rain, stormwater. Planting native trees with sufficient space for water penetration and root growth, sustainable outdoor amenity spaces, address the quantity and quality of stormwater on the site. That's a big factor because right now the entire 50 acres or more sheet flows into Vine Brook. There's no water quality units or treatment whatsoever. And it goes on to say developers should utilize the latent energy of their sites with roof-installed solar panels, solar shades over surface parking lots, geothermal energy, roof-mounted or pole-mounted wind turbines. So, and energy-efficient mechanical systems, appliances, et cetera. And all new developments are encouraged to meet the LEED certification type thing. So this is very detailed, and the aspects of it that are pertinent to us, of course, are the environmental improvements, which we would love to see. Anything they do there, if they plant a single tree in the middle of that parking lot, it's an improvement to what's there now. And other factors environmentally there was a study done in the last couple of years about heat island effects in the town, and the single greatest heat island, of course, was the mall parking lot and the roofs of the buildings in that area. So, if this were to be approved, the entirely developed area over a 30-year plan, this is, when the owners want to do it and propose it, they're expecting this is like a 30-year-long process, kind of like Third Avenue is. It took decades to get that from concept to something that was actually usable like it is today. But if that's done, it would turn those 50 acres into 20% green space. You'd get 10 acres of environmental green space and improvement, plus the street belts and the street trees and the ground cover and the Vine Brook Greenway. And there are negotiations that are available if a developer says, well, you've limited residential to whatever it is, 4 stories, and I want to put in a 6-story, they can negotiate by saying, I'll put in more green space and build a public park over here as an additional compensation for my request for increased design. Now, as I mentioned, we don't have any official authority, but I did draft a statement, which I will read into the record here, but I'll get a copy for each of you to pass one down to Sadie, please. And this is what I would like to ask for a vote this evening, to see if we would agree to support this being read at town meeting. So this is what the statement says. As written, this mixed-use zoning proposal would have significant potential positive environmental impact. The rezoning stipulates that each individual developer must include 20% green space within their plan if they stay within the design guidelines, 15% for lab buildings. Currently, there are 117 acres in the zone, with approximately half being impermeable black asphalt. This creates a massive heat island. There is currently no stormwater treatment runoff from the asphalt, just sheet flows off the site carrying pollutants directly into Vine Brook. And some of this water runoff can be at very high temperatures, adverse to the aquatic life in the brook. Any increase in green space and shade will greatly help the situation. The proposed zoning plan also includes walkways to increase pedestrian connectivity and a Vine Brook Greenway. We feel that all of this will have a positive impact on the environment and the connectivity of the area. For these reasons, the Conservation Commission voted, however we vote, to support the positive environmental features of the rezoning initiative. So we're only supporting the environmental features and none of the specific zoning wording and requirements.
This is great.
So, if that's open to any discussion you'd like to have on the subject, this is the first step, is to get the zoning in. There's 4 separate articles, but they're going to be handled as one. They're not going to have 4 separate articles at the meeting. They'll be open to
Should we
discussion.
stay within our lane and only comment on the environmental features? Do you think, damaging to go further? Because I am also very enthusiastic about many of the other features, like the the pedestrian access, the bike lanes, all those other things which are maybe scope creep, should we stick to our stuff
The
here? 'Cause-
town moderator made it very clear that when, he specifically said me, but it would apply to you as well, that when you are speaking for the commission, you make sure let it be known you're speaking for the commission. And when you are not speaking for the commission, let it be known that you are not speaking for the commission. You're entitled to have a personal decision as well and make it known, because you're representing a bunch of people in your district, or your precinct. So, but make it clear that this is not a conservation thing. And I don't remember the specifics, but he said something like at the last meeting, someone blurred the line, and I don't remember the specifics,
I
but.
don't want to run afoul of Bill Byer.
So I was pleased that he said yes, he would let us do it when all the other boards give their reports, but they voted. So, any other comments, or,
Oh, I think it's a good job. You did very good.
okay? Yeah.
I think it's really good. I mean, I remember when, I think, National Development was here for the district, and they proposed sort of a lot of like green space improvements and
Yep.
along Vine Brook as well. And I think that something like this would also sort of, there was a lot of talk about the connectivity between the district and the mall area, and then it's an improvement of that whole area would be, I think it would be really nice, really beneficial.
And keep in mind that when the developers actually want to do something, they still have to file an NOI or, whatever, and come before us and have it officially, reviewed and voted on. So, Sadie, do you have any comments on this that you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
And there will be space for negotiations, right? It's not like strict, you have to do that, except that 25%.
Well, a lot of this says should, the actual 20% is typically a minimum. It's a 20% minimum amenity space. But some of the other things like the sustainability, it said
Right,
things
that's
like you should consider,
Right.
solar panels and all that kind of stuff. So yes, there's going to be some negotiation. And again, it all comes down to the fact that this is not public property. We can't mandate too much be done without benefit to the owners, and they're going to come forth with proposals that they think will be beneficial. Now, I expect to hear a lot of discussion of this at the meeting, because, there are issues like traffic and school children that might, be added to the system if you build housing and stuff like that, but that's not the purview of conservation. So, we can't overstep the line that we have and what our purview is. So we are just supporting the positive environmental features of this rezoning initiative. So I worked with Larry on this wording, and so this is, I think, clear as to how much of a position we're taking, and it's within it's more of an opinion than an actual ruling. So. Okay, so no other discussion on it? I'd entertain a motion to approve giving this statement at town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? And I will leave the word unanimously in it, in my comments. So, good, thank you. And I think it's important because, like I said, there are people there who are thinking about all these hardscaping issues, and I want to make sure that they also realize the environmental benefits of this.
Exactly.
So just putting another house on it or something is not, I can see people saying, I don't want to do that, but when you say, look what you've got now and what you gain environmentally, I think that will soften the blow of some of the other opinions.
How close is Vine Brook from the actual mall?
If you're standing in the mall parking lot, the back part of it closest to the highway, the brook runs right along there, takes a right-hand turn and runs along the far left side of the thing, and then goes through the district. It actually goes all the way to the edge of the district and then takes a left. And if you haven't seen it, at that corner is where Burlington's only waterfall, which is kind of cool. And the district did a nice job of adding outside amenities for their employees, but there's a walking path and there's a nice sitting area in front of the waterfall. It's worth exploring sometime.
Check that out. We'll do this weekend.
So, you know, they did a good job of working with us. Larry has a grand vision of a Vine Brook walkway all the way from Bedford to the hotel at the top of Mall Road. And piece by piece is the way we're going to accomplish it. We're not going to do it in one, okay, let's build a Vine Brook walkway, but piece by piece, we can do it. Any new development, we can say, hey, would you mind considering putting a walkway across the back of your property or whatever? And part of that will be the whole Vine Brook well field that's now not a well field anymore. We'd like to make it accessible with some walkways around it and connect and stuff like that, so. So it's right there. When that mall was built, it basically put Vine Brook in a cage. It used to go meandering through the middle of the mall parking lot property, and they just stuck it in this channel going around the outside. Part of this project, they actually,
It goes at 90 degrees now. Don't know if you
Yeah.
can see that. I'll make it bigger. That's the way the stream now goes. Like, very natural.
one of the concepts that was discussed in this advisory group was to actually let some of that go in a more natural path, too. You know, maybe have it meander a little bit through that corner so it looks more natural, have some green space around it, and make it a public benefit, rather than a brook in a cage in the middle of asphalt. So, okay, so back to our agenda. I can get in there and cancel that. Next up, planning board comments. Do we have any planning board comments needed?
Well, we will, I mean, you can feel free to contact them as well, but I'll follow up with planning and economic development tomorrow, just to let them know that we made this vote, and they'll be very pleased with that, I think.
Yeah, I already told Melissa at Centopolis that I would send her a copy of this after it was approved.
Awesome.
So, and subcommittee staff reports.
I don't think there's anything that we particularly need to talk about right now.
Okay, other business, we did have that meeting yesterday for the middle school.
We did. We had an initial dialogue, as we were calling it, with some of the school committee meeting about the proposed playing fields at Marshall Simons Middle School. We gave them a little bit of information about what we would need to see. And I'll follow up with an email to them to give them more detail
Yeah,
on what exactly would need to go into a notice of intent and what we would need to see on plans. Do you have anything to add about the whole thing? I mean,
Not really. It was an informational thing for them to understand what might be involved. It was basically NOI 101, I think, for them, that, you know, they had no good concept of even what that was and how the wetlands are involved in something like that. So they do have a wetland scientist because it's already been flagged and they've already proposed where to put the filling.
was it flagged? Okay, I'm
Well-
not certain, just because there was no sign of these streams on that plan.
Okay, I
so-
might be wrong on that. I assumed where they had those areas.
I know,
of
I
where it was
thought
filled and
so
going to be
too, but when I thought about
replicated.
it, there was also a
Okay.
lot missing from the plan.
Okay,
so-
well, somehow somebody with some kind of knowledge has decided if you fill
Something
this
like that.
area, you've got to replicate it here.
That's true.
But they haven't showed us that the replication of flood storage is correct at the right foot-by-foot volume storage that's required to replicate, and that it's connected to the existing drainage to the wetland. So there's a lot to it, and it's all going to be artificial turf, and I haven't really got answers to questions, like, they show the artificial turf, and across it is 25 diagonal lines, each is a 12-inch drainage pipe underneath it. And yet they're saying it's pervious, and I'm not sure what that means. Does any water that falls on it actually go into the ground at the field, or is it some kind of a membrane underneath, and it's all drained off to the side? Questions like that weren't really answered to me.
I think the water percolates through the turf and goes to the drainage.
Then why do you
pipe.
need 25 12-inch pipes to carry it all off to the side, you know? It's not clear to me. So we need to have an explanation from
Right.
who's going to.
In the DEP proposed update to the regulations on the stormwater handbook that came out last year, they're considering artificial turf as impervious.
Impervious.
Impervious. And a lot of towns have had some significant issues with permitting of artificial turf. I'll send you guys some information around about that, if this proceeds, and I expect it to go at least somewhere. So we'll,
Then how they would handle the drainage if it is impervious?
that's the pipes that,
That's what the pipes are, and they're all going off to the upper corner where they showed a manhole, but there was no water quality unit, and then the manhole doesn't show where it was draining to, and it connects to the other field that they're not renovating at this time. Originally, it was proposed to take out both fields and renovate the whole thing, but town meeting said that was too expensive, so they split it into two. So they're doing the back fields, which were in the worst playable condition because they're wet, and half the games couldn't be played because it was mud or soggy or, like she said, ticks and everything else. So that's the one they're going to do first, and they have the money for it, and then they'll come back for the front one. So it's going to be two fields. Right now, there's one field this way. They're going to put two fields going this way, basically in the same footprint. And it's going to be two lacrosse fields, I think, two lacrosse fields that could also be soccer fields, with a net in between them to prevent the balls from going through.
honestly, I didn't pay attention to what sort of sport we were talking about. I was more interested in the surfaces.
Yeah, yeah.
Just since we're talking about schools, we are also, some point in the next, maybe month or two, expecting the notice of intent for Fox Hill.
Ah, okay.
Well, I've been
And
told that for several weeks now, so,
while we're on schools, the high school committee
right.
voted to reduce one of the options. They eliminated the option of going across the street to the vacant building on
So
Corporate
they
Drive.
rented that? Oh.
So they said that's not a good idea because there's not enough space there for the entire school with, you know, the auditoriums and the gymnasiums and stuff like that. It would just be students, but then they have to have some kind of a shuttle back and forth,
Yeah.
which wouldn't be a wise thing to do. And they don't have enough parking there for the teachers and students at the thing across the street. So they voted that one out, leaving three possibilities still on the table. The one that I think is the easiest for them to do, in terms of least disruptive to the students and parking and all that stuff, is to build a new school on top of the football field. And then tear down the old school and put the football field back there. But it is the least favorable amongst the residents who live around the school. They do not want a football field and a stadium and lights and marching bands and everything else next to their house. So they have been extremely vocal in these meetings. So it will be interesting to see. The other ones are all awkward, you know, build a building where the parking lot is and tear out the middle of the school and create two other buildings with a field, some kind of field in the middle and parking under the field. And it's like all these things that are, I don't know how palatable they are. But it's a difficult site, you know, and there's other open space, so to speak, but it's all wetlands. You can't just go sticking a school on the practice field in the back there.
Did they consider renovating the existing building?
Yes, but it's a difficult building. A great number of it's built like a bunker, you know, it's all cinder block. It's strong as heck. It'll stand for another 100 years if you did renovate it. But a number of the rooms don't even have windows. The floor, if you're facing from the parking lot, the floor at the left to the auditorium at the bottom where you vote, there's a difference in elevation of 30 feet. And they have ramps, you know, cement
Yeah,
ramps going from one level to the other that are not ADA
Yes.
compliant. It's brutalist, exactly.
Brutalist architecture, 1973, it's absolutely horrible. Have you ever
Yeah.
been in there? I had 4 kids go through it, and it
Yeah.
should not be
Right.
renovated.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just torn
true.
down.
Yeah.
So it would be very difficult to renovate it, and renovating it, where are you going to put the students for 2 years? You know, that's the other question. We don't have a place to put the students for 2 years while you do that. So I think that one, total renovation is gone. Now there's these hybrid, build a piece here and renovate this to still keep the auditorium, gymnasium, keep the administrative part that's up front, and add and then build another section in the middle later on. And so, you know, those are kind of some of the things that are around being considered. I don't know at what point they'll finally narrow it down to one, but they're getting there. It's going to be pretty soon. And then we'll see how, then it, you know, goes to all the funding and all the other stuff, and the permitting will start. Okay, anything else?
I don't think so.
I'll have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so be it.
A
Thank you.
quick one. All right, thanks, everybody.
Just double checking to make sure the forms got signed.